special guest in the studio with me today. Got to say good morning to our Honorable Minister of Justice, Miss Nathalie Tackling. Good morning, Minister.
Good morning, Electra. How are you?
I'm good. And yourself?
It's TGIF, right?
Yes, so it's Black Friday too.
Oh, that's right. See, you could tell I didn't mash up the credit card yet.
You still got time.
I still have time. The day is young.
Yes, it is. It is indeed. But of course, we're so happy to have you here, the Justice Minister. I know that you've got a lot of things going on. But before we get into all those, different issues and topics, tell us, how has it been? It's been a little bit about a year now that you are Justice Minister. How has that change been from the private sector now to the public sector?
Yeah. I'm a lot, the days are a lot longer than when I had my own business.
Okay.
No, obviously, of course, I miss the flexibility in my schedule that I had before.
Yes.
Now, of course, you have many more commitments and the work never stops. I think especially as Minister of Justice, the phone is never on silent. It's you can get calls anytime.
Yes.
So that, of course, has been an adjustment. But I think the job is what I expected the job to be.
Okay.
And so I knew what I was getting myself into. So, no surprises where that's concerned. So, how has it been? It's a big change, obviously, from the private sector, but I'm still happy that I took the leap.
Okay, well, that's wonderful to hear, and I know that you've had some serious challenges as you started, and I know for sure the prison was one heavy topic that we had to deal with. Tell us about that, with that crisis, how it went, and what we're looking at now, and the betterment of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously we got a wrench thrown at us, back in May, when we had this arson that took place at the prison, and that, necessitated a response that also took away from some of the work that we were already trying to launch, so we were slightly delayed where that was concerned, when it came to, I remember going up there after and inmates telling me, Minister, we have nothing to do up here, and I was like, yeah, but I was working on getting you things to do.
Right.
But now I have to deal with the response to a fire,
Of course.
But obviously we already had a trajectory going when it comes to the prison. We've been talking about this prison for a long time.
Very long time.
Especially since Irma, when we had the prison was very heavily damaged after Irma. And then from then, of course, there were court cases in front of the European Court of Human Rights.
Yes. But some of the prisoners had to be transported to Bonaire. Was that correct? Or something like that?
After the fire?
Sure. No, I think before or in between or...
Yeah, so we did have, after the fire in May, we did have a few that we were able to move to Bonaire.
Yes.
Just to help to be able to maneuver everyone a little bit. Because of course we were operating in an environment where there were no more individual cells and we had big groups of inmates in a room together. Essentially with field beds from the Marines, so it was very improvised way of detaining, and if it were up to us we would have sent everybody away, so that we could really clean up what was going
correctly,
on.
Yes.
But unfortunately that's not the reality where everybody has capacity challenges. Nobody has space.
I can imagine. It should be very, very challenging to mitigate these types of crises, but I guess you got it under control.
Yeah, I mean, it was, we definitely, we had a great response to that. I think we had a good team that we could respond with. Luckily we were able also to leverage our partnerships with UNOPS. They had an engineer here on the island that was busy with the construction of the new facility. So we said, come and make an assessment. Is it safe? Is it structurally still sound? So we were able to really quickly respond. So we got a little bit lucky where that's concerned, that we had all the pieces in place already. So
like you said, you were already getting things underway for the reform of the prison. So what could we be expecting as a community of St.Maarten with the new reform? Yeah,
so that's, the message that we're really trying to bring out, that I'm like a broken record on the radio for the past week and a half, I think, and what we're calling the DSRP, so it's Detention Sector Reform Program, and we hope that the DSRP, when everybody hears it, because it's a multi-year program, it's not just something that I'm going to talk about this week. We will continue to talk about this, and what we want to show is really that this is a holistic reform. We're not just building a new building. It's not just a brick and mortar, a new place to detain and contain people, but really we're looking at a new way of detention. We're trying to reform reform where that's concerned, from the pre-trial, from the minute that a police officer arrests you until you go all the way through the system back into your community.
Into rehabilitation,
exactly.
right.
So we're really looking at rehabilitating.
Correct.
And not just containing.
No, but I think that is very important because, you know, I like the word you use, actually, holistic. You know, that looking at the person at a whole approach, or the situation as a whole approach. Because yes, you have offenders, they do, you know, bad things that have ended up in the prison, but now if they're released, they have to rehabilitate and come back into the community and be a vital, opponent to help the community. So hopefully, you know, that process or trajectory that the prisoners will take will definitely help them to be better citizens in the future. Now, of course, when we talk about the prison, how long will that take? Because you said it's a trajectory, it's a process. How long are we talking about?
Yeah. So, good question. And you know that I know that we're in a space too, and on the island in general, right? We need to always see things to really believe that they're actually going to happen.
Right.
And so I'm really trying to tell everybody this is really happening. So actually, you know, right now the contractor is mobilizing. We're expecting to start groundbreaking in January.
Okay, so soon.
So yeah, we're moving. The train left the station and we move in. Exactly.
Okay, that's good news.
So when it comes to that, of course, our initial estimations right now is that phase 1, we will be building in 2 phases, because right now we have to imagine that we're building on the same surface area of the current prison. So the way that we're doing it is the prison will continue to operate. We'll build phase 1, and then after that, they will move the prison operations into phase 1.
Correct.
Demolish what is now known as the Point Blanche prison, and then construct phase 2. So phase 1, we're thinking the estimate is that it'll be done by mid-2027.
Okay, but that's still pretty fast.
Yeah, and of course, you know, with construction, you never know how
delays,
things are going to go.
And weather.
But, you know, we're trying to learn from some of the things that we've seen happen here, you know, and try to be able to make sure that we can move this project forward as quickly as possible, you know, because we've been waiting too long.
And for the reform in itself and the capacity, actually, how many prisoners will this new detention center hold?
Yeah, so we're going from currently 80 men that can be housed at Point Blanche, and 6 women. We're going to go up to 196.
196.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's definitely amazing. You know, but I'm wondering too, because you talked about there was certain things that were going on, and you were before the courts and all that stuff. Why is the reform so critical and important for the community of St.Maarten?
I think, look, we can look at this in multiple ways. And, you know, one, of course, is we're under enhanced supervision from what we call the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe. So once a judgment is issued by the European Court of Human Rights, there are usually recommendations and things that a country has to do in order to then live up to a certain standard.
Understood.
So that means that, you know, for example, last June, I actually had to travel to Strasbourg because I had to defend what the country was doing in front of all the member states of the Council of Europe.
Understood.
So to show them, hey, this is the progress that we're making, because then decisions are made in terms of what type of supervision you will remain under. So they want to see tangible progress. And right now, of course, we have to also send, every 6 months, we send updates to the Council of Europe showing them this is the state of our police cells, this is where we are with our new prison construction. And then these reports are discussed, you know, on a broader international framework or setting, let me put it that way. So there's that way of why is it important? Well, we have international obligations. But I think aside from that, the message I'm really trying to bring is this is really local reform. You know, we are the owners of the reform right now. And I'm like, we could take two things. The one way we can do it is, Holland told us we have to do it, so we can build a new prison, or we can build a prison the way that we think is important for our community. And as a ministry right now, we have, of course, implementing partners through UN agencies. But what I really want to make clear to the public is it's our vision. It's my vision. It's the ministry's vision. It's what we think is important for this country when it comes to detention reform. So it's not, you know, we're not waiting for everybody to tell us what to do. They are helping us to implement the vision that we see. So it's really local ownership and a local vision, and it's for St.Maarten by St.Maarten.
Well, I think that's definitely very important, very crucial. Like you say, a lot of times, you find yourself in situations where countries or larger countries feel like it can just be cut and paste. But, there are elements that prohibit that, in the sense that we live in a hurricane-prone area. We have to build differently.
Yep.
We have to continue to realize that this is very, very important. The wellness and mental stability of our prisoners over at the Point Blanche prison. Yeah. Now, of course, when you talk about construction, there must be a big price tag to that.
Yeah.
What are we talking about, Minister?
$52 million.
Whew.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whew. That is a lot of money, $52 million. And that will be given in tranches, or how is that going to be distributed?
So most of that is already. So of course the UNOPS is the United Nations Office Project Services. They are the ones that are actually in charge of the construction. Mm-hmm. So they are the custodian of this $52 million, and they are the ones that have to ensure that that construction takes place within that framework.
I got it.
And that $52 million is comprised of money from the Netherlands, but also a large contribution from the country of St.Maarten as well. So it's not just solely financed by the Dutch government. We also had to really put in a big chunk of that ourselves. So I believe that our last tranche is currently in CapEx now, be it the bonds that we've seen go out now.
Yes.
Or, that is, I think, the last tranche of what our contribution is. But I want to say that bigger than just that's hard, we call them the hard components, really. That is that brick and mortar, the real structure of a facility.
Yes.
There's a large, in this DSRP, really what the focus is also on those soft components. And the soft components is everything that goes inside, or as we call it, also the human component. So it's also, what are we offering inside the walls of that facility, but also adequate staffing, adequate training for our staff, making sure that people can come to work in an environment that is healthy for them also.
Of course.
I heard you touch on mental health. Those are things that we also want to look at, the mental health of our staff in the prison. But besides that, also our prisoners. Right now we don't offer any type of baseline mental health
or
care.
Therapy.
So those are things that we're looking at as well. And the nice thing, at least, is that the partners that we're using in this between the UNODC, which is our implementing partner for the soft components, they have a large experience throughout the Caribbean region with things like these too. So they, even our project manager was recently living in the Philippines and helping them. They've advised in the Dominican Republic, Central America, South America. So at least then we're looking at how can we leverage also our regional partnerships throughout the Caribbean to learn from one another as well. And I think as St.Maarten, we also feel like we're at the forefront right now for, I think, what can be really transformative for the entire region, because no one has something like we are doing currently. So we think that we can also be an example, to the rest of the region, that everybody can come have a look at us. We've been doing it wrong for a long time, but we hope that we could start to be, a symbol and a figure for everybody else to look at.
I like what you said, that you have various partners and professionals, not only from the region, but around, and that they can have an input, and you want to create something that's different, new, but yours, your vision, it's from inside out, even though, the outer people have say what happens here, what happens there, but you want to stay steadfast to listen. This is St.Maarten. We believe that we need it in such a way to accommodate our way of life for our prisoners. So
exactly.
I really like that approach, and I think it's definitely positive. Now, of course, UNOPS. Tell us more about the role that they have together to develop the prison.
Yeah, so UNOPS signed on with the country in 2022. So then there was a tripartite agreement between the country of the Netherlands, UNOPS, and St.Maarten. And within there, UNOPS got the assignment to develop what, the facility would look like, design actually that construction of the facility, look at the different options. Of course, there was, in those times, this started under Minister Richardson, and I do every time, when I come on, I'm like, I have to give her props as well, because it would be remiss of me. I wouldn't be able to pick up the ball and keep running if she didn't get me here the work that she did and the ministry did before that.
I say continuation of care, of continuation of work, and that's definitely extremely extremely important.
Yeah, definitely. So UNOPS at that time, then they were again instructed to then that assignment was to design that facility, and within that also they designed 9 soft components that could go into that facility.
Okay.
And where we got to earlier this year is one of the things that I quickly learned in my time as a minister is that a lot of times I thought it's money. We don't have enough money, but then I realized we also a lot of times don't have enough people. We are lacking
Staff.
Implementation capacity.
Okay.
So one of the things that we said with the prison, we have a small group of people already trying to do way too much within our ministry.
Understood.
And we recognize, well, we need a partner that is going to come and to be able to help us to implement that vision. So this is when we, in those discussions with the Netherlands, I was able to then secure funding for us to be able to bring in the UNODC.
Mm-hmm.
So we signed an agreement with them as of the 1st of August.
Wonderful.
So they then are in charge of these soft components, and that program is called Advanced SXM, and that is going to be a 4-year Advanced SXM for now, but it's part of the DSRP, and of course then that is a 4-year program. So we've committed right now as a country, as St.Maarten, close to $900,000, and then we have 4 million euros that will be contributed from the Netherlands per year after. So that it'll be tranches then until 2028.
Okay, great. And in its totality, to have this prison reform and all the partners and the soft parts that need to go in. When are we looking to say, okay, we have an up-to-date, humanistic, wonderful prison? When would be the deadline or, for completion, more or less?
Well, it's not necessarily a deadline, and we're going in phases, so that's why we're launching this program now. The soft components, we're starting now. We're not waiting for the construction of the new facility.
Good.
I have an obligation to the inmates that we have currently. Every time I go up there, I hear, we have nothing to do. Minister, give us something to do. We just sitting in here. And, that was something for me that I was like, these gentlemen need something to do. And we need to be able to offer them, some type of light at the end of the tunnel and some type of form of rehabilitation that they're able to reintegrate better into society. Because, we're also, and that's the thing, it's difficult to explain where it's hard sometimes to explain to the general public that we're spending this much money on a prison. But at the same time, we need to invest in the back end too, because that's also what you get back into your communities.
That's right, because you want to try to reform these prisoners so they can come back into the community and lead healthy lives.
Yeah, and we see it as from the ministry's perspective, we see this as an investment back into communities, because if we're able to transform an individual that they are better coming out than they went in, then that is a contribution to that community when they come back. And we want to avoid, these recidivism and seeing these repeat offenders. We need to do better. And, I'm a strong believer that the way that you treat your prisoners is a very big reflection of you as a community and a society. And I think that we need to step up a little bit in that respect. And it's not a hotel. Of course, if you commit a crime, you need to
do the time.
It's not a hotel, but we do want to offer, more. We have that obligation.
Yeah, but I think it's true. I mean, we see it in different prisons. I remember watching a documentary, and I thought to myself, like, what? These prisoners were not like in a prison. Mm-hmm. Of course, they were in a prison, but they had a house, and they had jobs like on the compound. I think it was somewhere in Sweden or Finland or one of those Scandinavian countries, and they were really productive, using their time that they had to stay at this facility and had a TV, and they could cook for themselves, and they would go to work in the compound, but they could never leave until they served out their time. So, like you say, it's good to look for that reform so that these prisoners can come back in the community and do better and not become repeat offenders.
Definitely. Yeah, and we're also trying to build a system that's sustainable in the sense of we want to ensure the durability of it,
Yes.
And because that's a lot of times where we're looking at how do we ensure that things don't drop off, that you don't lose programs, lose this, because a lot of times here things are very heavily dependent on a single person. That person, something happens to that person, then that no longer takes place, and we've all seen it where even as children growing up, your piano teacher, if she got sick, then too bad, no more piano.
It's like what we say in
Yeah.
show business, the show must go on.
Yes. So we're looking at, again, how can we ensure that this will withstand the test of time, and I want to put together a system now that whether I'm minister or not, that system can stand up on its own. And so
Very
that's
good.
really the work that we're trying to put in.
Now, of course, not only the prisoners in the prison system and reformation of it is important to your portfolio, but you have a large portfolio. You're dealing with immigration, you're dealing with police officers, and all kinds of other things. And a pertinent question I wanted to ask you, Minister. A lot of countries sometimes they have people that come here. Okay, they have people that come here. We're a tourist destination, and sometimes we have people from the neighboring island that come to look for work. I know of a situation, I think in Barbados, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, where they kind of opened it up in the sense of allowing people to come to register, pay their taxes, and be part of the fabric that uplifts the country. Do you think that we will be able to do something like that? Because we have a lot of outdated laws pertaining to immigration, and then you hear about, this one getting deported, and this one this, and this one that, and illegal workers, and that. So how do you want to tackle that, or what are your ideas towards that?
Yeah, I think that's not necessarily just a Ministry of Justice matter to look at, because, of course, I'm the minister in charge of the border, but I have another minister who is in charge of work and labor.
Understood.
So, I think that, in my thoughts, it needs to be part of a larger discussion about reform. I think that we need, and I'm not sure if the Ministry of VSA has that, but really that needs assessment is what is available on our local market and what do we need. And I think that sometimes we don't know if we have all of that information. We see, for example, a lot of large construction projects.
Yes.
And we know that we need to import a lot of labor, because even though we want local contractors to have work, there's not enough, labor on the market either. So I think that it needs to be a larger discussion of, how do we want to look at those things. And I know that, I think the Minister of VSA has some ideas. And of course, we need to also look at what can we sustain as a country.
Right.
What is necessary even for when we look at our insurance and our healthcare system, and what do you need to keep all of these different machines, working
together
all the time.
Yep.
So from the immigration perspective, we don't have too much of an opinion on it right now.
Okay.
Of course, we look at if a person comes with a work permit, you will get a residency permit. So again, that assessment of what is needed on the country is not necessarily being made by the Ministry of Justice. That's the Ministry of VSA saying, okay, well, because again, that the whole idea is that we're protecting our borders and our labor market so that locals can have employment, So those are things that, again, not necessarily going through the Ministry of Justice. So there's maybe sometimes a little bit of a disconnect that we maybe could work more closely together in terms of what is that holistic vision of what we want for the country. But when it comes to people coming for work, that is an assessment that the Minister of Justice is not allowed to tell you whether or not you're allowed to work. That is we actually have jurisprudence, because before you would have on your residence permit, arbeid vrij toegestaan or arbeid niet toegestaan, meaning you can work or you can't work, prohibited or it's allowed. And in court we were told that the Minister of Justice is not allowed to make that assessment. That can only be done by the Minister of Labor.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So interesting things to talk about
is, you must keep yourselves you have to uphold
the law,
the labor regulations as well. So, but it doesn't say you can or you cannot work. That's
okay. So it's like up there, in between. Okay, gray area, kind of a gray area. Well, Minister, we have so many things I want to ask you, but there's not enough time. So I want to, have this opportunity to invite you back again, so we can discuss more. I think, when we have these kind of vital information sessions to the community of St. Maarten to let them know what you're working on, what's been happening, I think it's nice to let people know so that they're included in your decision making. But then you also get feedback from the community and ideas as your approach to saying, this is the prison that we want to do. I understand we have to uphold certain situations and circumstances internationally, but we also have to facilitate our people, the way of life here in St. Maarten. So continue on that trend.
Yes, thank you.
Congratulations. And I hope to have you back here soon again.
Anytime.
Yes, thank you. Minister of Justice, Ms. Nathalie Tackling. Of course, she continues to do the work for the community of St. Maarten. And of course, for more information, you can also check out their website, government website, and, just send in questions, write the minister, whatever you need to know. I'm sure she'll be happy to answer you. Thank you, Minister. Have a happy Black Friday.